I finished Nioh. I did it. Finally, I am unstoppable. No, I screamed at my TV the entire time. Disclaimer, should it interest you. I played Nioh on my PS4 to start. I got it for free with PlayStation Plus. Then I transitioned over to my PlayStation 5 to play it more and continue my playthrough. But I do not seem to have qualified for the PS5 upgrade, so I am missing out on that whole experience there. I'm doing okay. Don't worry, there's plenty of fish in the sea. It's not me, it's them, of course. Yada yada yada. I don't know if that context will matter to you or make you turn away, but I wanted to be upfront about it anyway because that's just the kind of guy I am. Now I have conflicting thoughts on the first Nioh game. I don't know if it's just me or widespread sentiment, but I'm just plainly throwing it out there that my thoughts on the game are mixed. It's hard to really get mad at a free game, a game you didn't spend money on. I mean, sure, you can still say it's not good or that it's trash and you don't have to like it, but you didn't pay for it, so you inherently don't have to feel like you wasted any hard-earned cash for it, just maybe a bit of your time, of course. It's like not ever wanting to purchase a pair of Jordan sneakers for yourself because they're expensive and you're not that into them, but if someone came up to you on the street and said, here's a free pair of Jordans for you to wear, and they looked halfway decent, the sneakers I mean, you'd take them and wear them everywhere, assuming they were comfortable, because after all, you didn't pay for them. Can you really complain? Yes, but at the end of the day, you didn't buy them, so your perspective is always going to be slightly askew. I will say though, if someone did hand you a pair of new Jordans randomly on the street, you should check that pair that this random person gave you, make sure it doesn't have a security tag still on it. I do feel a bit like my money was on the line here because I did end up purchasing the season pass before playing Nioh because I assume I would want to experience all of its content, so I took that risk, or I took the risk that way. So essentially either way, my money was on the line here too. When I started the game, it's very, very overwhelming. There's a lot of mechanics and gameplay systems in place, and the game does an okay job of explaining everything, but it's almost as if you're learning to ride a bike for the first time. You can be told how to do it, you can be shown how to do it, but until you just do it for yourself, you don't know how. This is how Nioh is in the beginning. There's a lot of systems working together, and it can feel a bit overwhelming, but it's clear the inspiration Nioh takes from the Souls series, but it has so much of its own spin and DNA, it's impossible to suggest the game is quite like anything else out there. The story is, simply put, nonsensical. I'm sorry if you like the story or find it compelling and moving in any way, but I could not for the life of me understand what was going on. The way I'm going to describe it is a mixture of things I knew and the plot summary off of Wikipedia, because that's how I roll. You're playing as William, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Irishman. The game is set in a fictionalized version of the Sengoku period in Japan, a period in Japan's history of near constant civil war. There's, of course, supernatural elements thrown in, the existence of these demonic creatures known as yokai, guardian spirits, magic, Amrita, a mystical gold stone found in abundance in Japan, and more, of course. You're sent by Queen Elizabeth I to find this substance that can hopefully help England secure victory over Spain. The Amrita, that is. And that's pretty much the story. You find some guy named Kelly, or at least you try to stop him through most of the game. You battle bosses and spirits and collect Amrita to level up. For me, the story... okay, it's a lot of disjointed scenes with characters talking about specific things they want you to do or help with, and very rarely is there much development beyond you stopping those guys over there. Go stop them. Neat. I do appreciate boss battles, at least the human ones, ending in a kind of tragic fashion where you get the history of the character who just fought briefly and what drives them.
Treated like property. But then, my lord Nobunaga granted me the title of samurai. But I couldn't save him. Like the snake man said, I believe only my lord could rule a world as crazy as this one.
But as I said, it's just a thin layer of what is really just a confusing kind of amalgamation of scenes. Every game has different strengths and weaknesses, and just because your gameplay is solid doesn't mean your story can't hurt the experience. It doesn't hurt the overall experience, as this game is more, at least what it felt like to me, an experiment of a bunch of ideas mashed together, but mainly a, for lack of a better way of describing it, a gameplay showcase of sorts. Yeah. You fight bosses, you fight some dudes, you level up, so the story is there, but it's not that impressive or memorable, at least in my opinion. If you disagree, that's fine, but various times throughout the story, characters die or turn into some supernatural being, and I was like, oh, who was that? I don't remember anyone's names. You play as William, I know that. Visually, the game is pretty solid. I did notice some low resolution textures here and there, but nothing that bothered me really. Cutscenes still look good and probably the most visually stunning part of the game. Guardian spirits floating around to contrast the dark and almost drab nature of the game world at times is a good juxtaposition between the two. That's not to say Nioh doesn't have its more colorful, vibrant areas of its world, it does. In fact, I actually didn't find the game's levels that visually interesting. You see, Nioh is a bit less open than a Souls game, where you don't have the world at your feet, traveling the game world freely and traveling between areas, occasionally fast traveling with bonfires or archstones. It's more mission oriented, where the concept is basically the same, except you have to pick missions on a map to do, and it will have you travel around the various locations. But again, Nioh's look and feel is unique, but the environments are not always super memorable, especially when you go back and forth to different areas reusing the same maps, even in later areas when you do a submission and you're like, hey, didn't I leave this area? Why is it using the same map again from before? It's fine, I suppose, it just didn't keep the game visually interesting over the long haul for me. Nioh is, and I even hesitate to describe it this way, a Souls-like action RPG. It's more than that though. It does enough to separate itself from games before it. You have a number of different weapon styles you can work with, and each of them are distinct. They all have their different abilities and whatnot you can unlock for them as you level up. You also have ranged weapons like rifles and bows and arrows. There's magic as well, or Nioh magic on Nioh, with different elements and effects. Get talismans and imbue your weapons with said elements to bring down bolts of lightning. It all looks really cool. There's also ninja skills, which gives you different abilities and equipment like shurikens or kunai, and even better sprinting and scrolls to give you buffs to some abilities. I went with dual swords and an axe to start. Thankfully, and this is something I think all RPGs should just let you do, I was able to respec multiple times and find a playstyle that suited me better, and one that I even liked more. I ended up on a single sword and a Kirsagama. I probably said that wrong, because I read on the good old internet, or ye old faithful as I know some of you whippersnappers call it, that it has some good, even OP skills, and look folks, I will say the game has a lot of balancing issues, yes, even at this late date. I am pretty bad at the game though too, so I need that. But you have odachi, swords, dual swords, axes, staves, hammers, tonfas, and the other one I just said, and I will not try to say again. You can't make me do it. Hirasagama. Alright, I did it. Thank you for putting up with all these incredibly cheesy jokes. Nioh has and embraces diversity in its combat and systems to the point where there's almost no two players who will play the same, and that is pretty awesome. All of these skills are assigned to various shortcuts on the D-pad, and commands are mapped to the weapons. You have a high stance, low stance, and mid stance. Each you can assign various abilities or the same abilities. Nioh has so much going on in it that it's almost to its detriment at times. I'll get into that later. For now, it's just amazing to me how much freedom there was in combat to help you get through levels. It's one of the game's biggest strengths. You collect Amrita for killing enemies, which you'll use to level up, and if you die, you have a chance to collect it. Die before getting to it, and you lose them for good. But also, you lose your Guardian Spirit until you recollect it, or the next time you die. A Guardian Spirit is simply put, your special OP mode. I guess you would say rage mode type system. You can't die while using your Guardian Spirit mode or living weapon mode, but being damaged does cause it to end more quickly. The Guardian Spirits are another layer to an already complex combat system, and they do work pretty well. Your stamina or ki works on a kind of active reload system similar to Gears, where you have a second or so to recover a bunch of it. It sounds like there's a lot going on, and there is, to be honest. A lot of these systems work pretty well together, but I feel it's the case that Nioh has so much going on it actually struggles to do anything above good or average. Not that the various systems in Nioh don't work at all together, they do. I'm just saying it doesn't feel like any of them stand out. So in some ways it's just the diversity in systems can be a bit of a detriment to it. I know. How can I praise it for being diverse but also then say that it hurts it? It's just a long learning curve where you are trying to figure out how everything works together and manage so many different mechanics at once. Once it clicks and you get the hang of it, it ends up being pretty unique and something special. You spend a good amount of time on menus. You can spend over an hour forging weapons, selling equipment, buying new equipment, upgrading weapons, transmogging equipment, learning new skills, leveling up, changing your hair and outfits. Before you know it, an hour has gone by. Admittedly, I kind of like managing the equipment in various systems, even if at times it is a bit tedious. Nioh can also be incredibly difficult as well. It's fine through most of the game and even manageable, and you can say I'm a goddamn noob and you'd be right, and I need to get good. But I honestly feel like it just becomes wildly weirdly unbalanced towards the middle and definitely closer to the end of the game. All of a sudden, missions wildly outpace your level, and I began to wonder and suspect and even outright realize that the assumption I suppose you're going to grind for hours on end. By the time I beat the main storyline, I was level 111, and one of the last missions in the game is set for like level 130 or something close, which granted the recommended levels on missions don't reflect on individual builds or player skills. It's more that again, you're forced to grind or summon someone to help, or just give up entirely and cry to your mommy about how you no win. It can disrupt the pacing of the game a bit in some way, unless you summon someone for help, of course, and the majority of the time when you do, it's some dude bro who's probably like on New Game Plus 3 and level 300, and they come in and one-shot the bosses, and I'm like, damn dude, roasted. Seriously though, imagine this. The T-800 model from Terminator 2, a robust mechanical marvel. It can reshape and reform itself as it's destroyed, and it's seemingly invincible. Imagine that, and then someone just looks at it and is like, nah man, flicks its wrist and it gets destroyed. Roasted. That's the same feeling of a level 300 plus player coming to your non-New Game Plus world and one-shotting the boss. A feat almost terrifying by its very nature alone. Thank God they're on our side. You can summon people at Torii gates to join you in missions or as a visitor at a shrine. It's actually a lot of fun and results in some very chaotic moments and moments of heroism as your friend dies by the sword for you or you by them. Unless you grind for hours on end, you'll probably need to rely on other people for assistance. Your other option is to try and suffer through it, or as the fine folks on the internet will tell you, get good. Nioh came out in 2017 and has all the underlying workings of a game I should like or be interested in. But truth be told, I'm conflicted overall. The more I got used to it, the more I got into it, and I ended up liking it more than I did when I first started, but still not nearly as much as I anticipated. Clearly, I can't say I didn't like it. I currently sit at 80 hours on my playthrough, not exactly an I didn't like it kind of number, of course. It's just a mixed bag of challenging and fun gameplay systems, but also none of it sticks out to me to be super exceptional, even something that would make me recommend this game wholeheartedly. So my honest assessment of Nioh is that it's a solid game with a lot that is good and exciting in it, but it's just, in my mind, bogged down in trying to do so many things that it doesn't do anything exceptionally well. There is fun to be had, but it's not balanced very well, especially towards the end. And it's got a lot of complex systems that are good, but Nioh doesn't excel in any one area for me, just kind of is solid at everything. It's a cliche, but it's a simple case of jack of all trades, master of none. That's going to be it for me, folks. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you feel so inclined. I don't know why I'm doing a breathy, sexy voice. Also, maybe you don't want to subscribe, but if you like the video enough to share it, that would be cool too. Thanks. Thanks for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you later.